In the silence of the front line, shrouded in morning mist, the only sound was the gentle rustling of the wind among the rubble and the remains of trenches. In the distance, a Russian soldier crossed the blast-strewn ground, and behind his scope, a Ukrainian sniper held his breath. At the end of his scope, a Russian soldier was seen moving quickly, crossing the open ground without adequate cover. Measured distance, 800 meters. Wind speed, constant from the northwest. The target was moving, weapon in hand, but he was oblivious to the danger. With the composure of only experienced snipers, the Ukrainian soldier adjusted his elevation and wind direction, his index finger gently pressing the trigger. With barely a tremor, and a silent explosion was heard. Only the whir of a supersonic bullet pierced the air, traveling faster than sound. In a split second, the 7.62 millimeter round found its way, piercing the metal helmet and ending the invader's movements, who had still managed to turn the wrong way. His body staggered, then fell silently to the ground that had claimed so many lives. For the Ukrainian unit, this was more than just a single shot. It was a sharp message of justice with every bullet fired, a determination that Ukrainian soil would never submit to foreign rule. The sniper, part of a long-range reconnaissance unit, was known for his uncanny precision. They worked silently, unseen, unheard, but always deadly. In this operation, he fired from a concealed position behind concrete rubble, waiting for nearly an hour for just one perfect opportunity. As Russian troops continued to advance in the eastern sector of Donetsk, Ukrainian snipers became their nightmare. Any careless step in the open could mean an instant end. Eyewitnesses from the reconnaissance unit reported that after the shot, 2 other Russian soldiers tried to pull their comrade away, but quickly abandoned the idea after hearing the sharp click of the sniper's weapons reload. They disappeared into a trench, leaving the body lying in the dust. In the operations report, the unit's command wrote a short but powerful sentence: 1 bullet, 1 shot, 1 less invader. Now, is Russia losing 30,000 troops a month as its wider war on Ukraine grinds into its 44th month? Or is it losing more than that, 50,000 a month, or even more, as the Russians shove more and more regiments and brigades into the narrow salient northeast of the fortress city of Pokrovsk? Their casualties are increasing. Different sources disagree over exactly how much Russian casualties are increasing. They don't disagree that more Russians are dying, getting maimed, or going missing, many of them in and around the chaotic 40-square-kilometer salient. A leaked Russian document provides a baseline for Russian losses between the 1st of January and the 1st of September this year. According to the document, Russian forces suffered 281,550 casualties in those 245 days, 86,744 killed in action, 33,996 missing in action, 158,529 wounded in action, 2,311 captured. That's 35,000 casualties a month through the early weeks of Russia's renewed push toward Pokrovsk. Of those 35,000 casualties, several thousand were probably temporary, as the more lightly wounded recuperated and returned to service. Given that Russia recruited nearly 32,000 fresh troops a month over the same 8 months, there's a good chance the Kremlin enjoyed a small troop surplus throughout much of 2025. But Russian commanders' determination to capture Pokrovsk, one of the last urban strongpoints between the Russians and the free twin cities of Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, has erased that surplus. Now the Russians are almost certainly losing more troops than they're recruiting every month. However, it's unclear how deep the deficit is. September losses climb higher than Ukrainian estimates. Another leaked document detailing Russian casualties for the 4th of September lists 995 total casualties, around half of them from the center grouping of forces fighting around Pokrovsk. Incredibly, this is a slightly higher count than the official Ukrainian count of Russian losses for the same day. The Ukrainian General Staff, which could be forgiven for projecting rosier figures, tallied just 810 Russian casualties on the 4th of September. The casualty rate among Russian field armies has probably increased since then. On the Pokrovsk direction, Russian troops activated attacks across the entire direction, suffering 18 to 20% greater losses over the last week, the Ukrainian Center for Defense Strategies reported Wednesday. If CDS is correct, the Russians are losing around 1,200 troops a day. If the typical ratios of killed to wounded to missing hold, 1,200 total casualties could mean 400 confirmed KIA a day. Analysts widely assume most missing Russian soldiers are also dead somewhere along the 1,100-kilometer front line. Analyst Andrew Perpetua visually confirmed 825 Russian KIA in 5 days, starting on the 9th of October. That's 165 dead Russians every day on average. But Perpetua stressed that his count is probably low, as there are surely many Russian combat deaths that don't leave behind photographic or video evidence. Perpetua himself estimated he observes between 15% and 30% of Russian losses. Being conservative, that could mean that Russia's battlefield deaths are approaching 500 a day. Applying the usual ratios, that could mean 1,000 wounded and 250 missing. And again, most of the missing are probably dead. Russia's recruitment can't keep pace with mounting casualties. That's a lot of dead, maimed, and missing Russians, potentially 50,000 or more total casualties a month. The problem for the Kremlin is that there's no evidence it has boosted recruitment to match the deepening losses. If the Russian military is still adding 32,000 fresh troops a month, it's likely running a manpower deficit of around 20,000 troops a month that it can't replace. Russian leaders are worried. Moscow is facing increasing difficulties replenishing the ranks of its invading army, Ukrainian-American war correspondent David Kirichenko wrote. The growing manpower deficit is evident in the extreme measures the Russians are taking to address it. With fewer Russians now prepared to volunteer, the Kremlin is seeking to recruit more foreign fighters, Kirichenko pointed out. There's recent evidence of Indians, Cubans, and even Kenyans enlisting in the Russian armed forces. Russia is still a very long way from running out of soldiers, Kirichenko stressed. But Putin has no more easy options as he seeks to replenish his decimated invasion force and continue the war in